Bom, vamos iniciar aí pontualmente às 17 horas, né? Então, essa sessão é a sessão plenária, que vai ter a apresentação do professor Antônio Lopo Martinez. Temos as participações aqui de algumas pessoas na sala, né? Eu acho que a gente poderia, como a sessão está sendo gravada também, né? A gente poderia respeitar, acho que a regra do Congresso de tentar conduzir a apresentação aí em inglês, que eu acho que a gente seguir o que a norma dispõe, né, professor? Então, você teria 20 minutos para a apresentação e depois 25 minutos para o debate. Então, a partir de agora, eu acho que a gente poderia começar a sua apresentação e conduzir a toda a sessão em inglês. Ok? Agradeço o prestígio aí, né, de poder debater o seu trabalho. Então, a palavra está com você. Obrigado.
Okay. Okay, everyone do you see my presentation, Professor Otávio?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Okay, thank you for the opportunity to present my paper. My paper is entitled Tax Whistleblowing, that in Portuguese is Denúncia Fiscal, International Practice and Legal Regime in Brazil. I will be presenting the paper. My name is Antônio Lopo Martinez. I am from the IRS from Brazil. I'm also associated with the University of Coimbra. And my colleague, my co-author, is also from IRS from Brazil, Fábio Menezes Souza Silva. We are discussing a topic that we think that are extremely important for the prevention of tax evasion, to guarantee tax compliance. We believe also that it's extremely important to guarantee the effectiveness of tax audits. But even though it's so important, in a paradox way, we don't have this a special worry about the tax administration in Brazil about this topic. So we consider to discuss this. As we see from the literature in Brazil, there is almost no discussion about this topic in terms of even law and in accounting, especially in accounting. So we believe that's a very important topic to be presenting here. Of course, it will be only 17 pages. It's not, we cannot cover everything. Okay, the objectives of the paper, we have 5 main objectives in the paper. The first one is to discuss the tax whistleblowing, fundamentals in legal nature. I would say the denúncia fiscal, as I said. We will compare our practice with the international practice from US, from Canada, from UK, from other countries in the European Union. We will discuss in a critical way how Brazil Federal Tax Administration work with the tax whistleblowing, what's the operation, the procedures in Brazil. And we'll also introduce a topic that we think that's very important, that's considered to use rewards, to positive rewards, of course, to the people that's supposed to be the whistleblower that offers, or denunciante that offers the information for the tax administration. And finally, we will have a diagnosis of the situation in Brazil with some recommendations. I would say that's the main objectives of the paper. The problem, what's tax whistleblowing or denúncia fiscal? What would be a denúncia fiscal can be interpreted as alerting or notify something to an administrative or judicial authority about illegal action or some irregular events. In this case, we are discussing about the tax perspective. We are discussing about tax denounce, a tax complaint, I would say that. We believe that reporting tax irregularities, if properly structured, is vital to promote, crucial to promote transparency, fairness, tax fairness, and democracy in a country. As an example that we see that countries that are usually democracies, they have very good tax whistleblowing programs that's different from what we have in Brazil. So if we wanted to approach this best or these benchmarks in terms of tax whistleblowing programs, we should consider to reformulate our program. The tax whistleblowing can prevent tax misconduct. It's also important for the budget, the tax budget, and to prevent some crimes, corruption, and that they may try to prevent to use illicit money and don't pay the proper tax. So tax complaints, I would say that's also important to prevent international criminal organizations. But it's recognized, it's a problem that we have to face, that in South America, South America in general, but particularly in Brazil, the tax complaints are extremely controversial, from historical and cultural repudiation about the use of this instrument. That's particularly different from what you see in democracies, but it's a fact. In Brazil, I think that for cultural aspects, people try to avoid and think that tax complaints are not a very important instrument to try to guarantee, to avoid tax evasion. That's a point that we see. It is very different from what you see in some democracies, as I will show an example. Our premise that we have is that the information from tax complaints are crucial, sorry for the mistake, are crucial to create conditions to optimize. It's crucial that the tax administration create conditions to optimize the use of the instruments. The tax administration has to help so that the people, the whistleblower, would be more willing to offer this complaint about some kind of irregularity in terms of tax. To facilitate this decision to do a complaint, it's very important that the tax administration produce some incentives for making these taxing reports, reducing the cost for the whistleblower, so it doesn't have cost-benefit analysis for the whistleblower. If you, of course, if you reduce the cost, it's more likely that he will do the complaint. And it's very important also to encourage and disseminate the importance of these tax complaints. That's something that you don't see in Brazil in terms of federal government in any sense. But making whistleblowers, you should protect their risks, so you should try to help, because of course, when you are a whistleblower, you may be exposed to some risks, so you have to ensure confidentiality. You have to compensate them for their losses. Maybe the whistleblower will lose the job, the whistleblower will be followed by the accused. So try to compensate, try to help to minimize the cost for the whistleblowers. In terms of benefits, it can also, you may consider, it's my point of view, to reward with some positive incentives the people that usually try to go in public or try to go to the tax administration, you offer a tax complaint. Okay, I will give some examples, only very, very quick. The paper I give more details, but I will begin with the IRS in USA. The IRS maintains a website, a specially dedicated website that provides information regarding reports of suspect tax frauds. So the whistleblower in the United States is encouraged to report any kind of lack of compliance to tax law, false exception, deductions, false documents, no payment of tax, unreported income. So you have incentives. As a matter of fact, in US, they also provide the possibility of paying a reward to people that provide specific and credible information to collect taxes. It's a very important program. For example, if the tax credit that you provide information, in the IRS can collect more than $2 million, the IRS may pay to you, the whistleblower, 15 or 30% of the amount collected. It's very important. For example, if you see 2018, 2019, almost on average this year, in US, they collect from tax withdrawing an amount near to $1.5 billion, and they pay as rewards for the whistleblowers an amount of $300 million. So it's a very lucrative program, I would say that, and they have all the interest to keep this program. Nevertheless, in Brazil, no, don't think about this. But okay, let's see other countries. We have also the UK, the tax administration there, that's the Her Majesty Revenue and Customs, also has a website dedicated to provide information interface to make tax complaint, dedicated. And there is also a provision to make and pay rewards to the whistleblowers. Other country, to give more examples, Canada Revenue Agency also has a very user-friendly digital portal to tax complaints. It's a portal that's dedicated to do this, only to do this, only in the access with the tax administration, like in US, like in UK. In the Canada Revenue Agency offers also awards, but more specifically for questions that involve international tax evasion and aggressive tax planning in a program that they call Offshore Tax Informant Program. They offer an amount of 5 to 15% of the amount collected as a reward. So it's very interesting, it's very used nowadays for some democratic countries. Australia is more conservative. They provide also, has a site, a specific site, portal for them. They don't provide rewards, but they provide protection. Protection to the whistleblowers. For example, identity protection, protection against any loss from administrative, civil, and criminal actions. They provide lawyer and help to the whistleblower. If they compensate in the case of any loss of the whistleblower, they compensate the losses for them. If they lose a job, try to find and help find a job, things like that. So Australia doesn't have a reward, but try to reduce the cost for the whistleblower. The European Union, in general, the European Union, different from the Anglo-Saxon countries, they don't have any kind of rewards, I would say that. They have specific portals dedicated to tax complaints, and they are very concerned to protect the whistleblower. But they don't, as a matter of fact, they don't have, until this moment, there's a discussion going on, but they don't have rewards. So how is Brazil in this? In Brazil, we don't have any rule, specific rule about this. We don't have any norm. We try to do, I work for the IRS, and I try to see if there is a norm to that somehow provide some guidelines on how to operate. There is no specific norm about this. So I try to describe here how it would work in a case that you want to do a tax whistleblower, a denúncia fiscal. What would you do in Brazil? Okay, in Brazil, in this new administration, they centralize in CGU, any kind of manifestations that you have against the government or in favor. If you have a complaint, if you have a doubt, if you want to consult, if you want to recognize something that's positive, you use this Fala BR, that's a specific site. So if you want to discuss about a topic of tax whistleblowing, you have to go there, look between all the agencies that you have in Brazil, Agência das Águas, you have to see all the agencies, go to Ministry of Economy, then the Ministry of Economy, you have to look for the Receita Federal, and then in Receita Federal, you have to see if it's a tax, a tributo, if it's a aduana, and then there you will put your fiscal denounce, or your tax whistleblowing, or your tax complaint, I would say that. And you can annex, in Fala BR, you can annex some proof that you have. So you see that it begins all wrong, all different from what you have in other countries, because you offer your tax complaint to a administration, but not to the tax administration. It's an office of controller that's not responsible. So it's a question that you have in Brazil. But then, after this analysis of CGU, that's called CGU in the case of controller in Brazil, if they consider that there is something that should be analyzed by the Brazilian IRS, they send this to the Brazilian IRS. And Brazilian IRS, that's number 3, will do an assessment if there is a case to really do some supervisory procedures or uma fiscalização, if it is the case to do that. Maybe it's not the case, that it's related to a very old year, you have the decadence of that year, you cannot assess anymore. So they will send to the fiscalização, I would say that, to do, if it is possible, to do an assessment. If it is do an assessment, it will begin an assessment. It's assessed by an auto de infração, then the taxpayer has the opportunity to a resource. Then they will use all the tax administrative procedure that you have in Brazil. So that's how it works in Brazil in general. I give more details in the paper. I will talk other issue that is my 4th topic that I'm discussing, is about the reward tax whistleblowing. I really think that's important to offer a reward, even though it's only offered in US, UK, and Canada, as I said in my review before. But I have to recognize that the whistleblower often faces a dilemma. It's very difficult to be a whistleblower because usually the whistleblower is someone that's so near to the taxpayer that's not paying tax that maybe will be a friend, maybe is even a member of the family or someone in your social circle. And he's in a dilemma. What he should do, he should denounce a family member, a friend, or an employer, or should I do the right thing, use the norms of the justice? It's a dilemma, and that's facing. So the whistleblower offers, as a matter of fact, if you don't offer any kind of reward, the only satisfaction that the whistleblower will have is this: would say, "Look, I'm doing the right thing. I'm doing the right thing." It's maybe enough for someone, but it will also face some staggering costs. We will face some risks. So you have to compensate. And so in summary, I use more arguments in the paper, but the tax whistleblower, it's, as a matter of fact, it's highly undercompensated for their social benefit efforts. So the tax whistleblower is doing, in some point of view, a social beneficial effort that's for the whole society and doesn't get anything at all. only the sense I'm doing the right thing. So that's why I defend the reward tax whistleblowing, even though I recognize that's a controversial topic. It's only my opinion. My last two slides to finish my presentation. From my diagnosis from the Brazil, I have some conclusions that I want to expose and some recommendations that I would recommend to the tax authority and the tax policymakers to consider about tax complaint. The first thing is that there is, a matter of fact, there's a lack of clarity and rules in procedures about the tax complaint procedures in Brazil. There is no rules, there is no norms, there is no statutes. So it's very important for a tax whistleblower to know all the norms, to be very clear to him, what's on my rights, what should I expect, how my identity will be protected, how this information will be treated. There is no information at all to the tax whistleblower. There is a lack of massive dissemination of mechanisms to promote tax complaint. You never see the IRS say, look, denounce, do their tax complaint about some irregularities. You see, for example, for sexual harassment, you see for many other crimes, you see, look, denounce, do their complaints. But why not to do for tax complaints out? Why you don't have this? So I believe that there should be more dissemination of this information, because it's very important for the society, for the democracy, that everyone pays the correct amount of tax they're supposed to pay. In terms of the Brazil, especially the federal government, I see that it's very difficult to make a tax complaint, especially now with this Fala BR. So it's not a dedicated, you don't have any specific information about tax complaint. So as a tax whistleblower, I would feel completely lost. It would be my sense. There is also a perception in Brazil, it's of course, it's very natural, the very low adequate protection to the whistleblower, to the tax complaint, who is not supported for any statute, any defined rules of protection. There is no rules to protect. In the European Union, they are discussing a lot about this issue, how to protect the tax whistleblower, how to provide some protection to reduce the cost from this. So in this context, it's very easy to understand why in Brazil, the effect of tax complaint is minimal, if not negligible. So that's the main point that I want to express. And some recommendations that I would suggest are the following. Potential whistleblowers must know and understand how the tax whistleblower rules work. In Brazil, we don't have rules, but we should have rules so that the tax whistleblower would be more willing to offer a tax complaint. Whistleblower will not be motivated if they perceive that the tax administration is unlikely to act with this information. There is no sense, there is a feeling that nothing will be done, that this information will not be used. So it's very important to try to provide some feedback to the people that consider to do tax whistleblower. There should be a channel especially dedicated to tax complaint, managed exclusively with tax authorities. I think that's, I can't understand how can you can do a tax complaint with some tax information that's supposed to be secret to CGU and not to tax authorities. You have to do it direct to tax authorities. They are supposed to keep this information in secret. They have the obligation by their job to commit to this behavior. So I would recommend, like in US, like in Canada, like in Australia, a channel especially dedicated for tax whistleblowing. The processing of tax complaints in federal administration needs a statute for tax whistleblowers. It's very important if you consider to use this instrument. As I said, very important to reduce tax evasion, very important to increase the effectiveness of the tax audit. It's reported in the literature. It's very well documented, this fact. So it's important to have an institute for the tax whistleblower, some to provide rights to this tax whistleblower. And about the debates on using rewards to increase tax compliance, I think that we should encourage the society, this debate, to think about this. I'm not saying that's the right way to do, because as I said to you, for example, European Union don't use rewards, but the Anglo-Saxon countries, they are very pragmatic. They say, look, let's do it. I don't care if it's a family member. I don't care if it's an spouse that's giving information. I only care that this will be important for the society. And I want to that the tax rules be fulfilled, everyone be compliant with the rules. So I think that's my point. So only to finish my presentation, that's my name, Antonio Loco Martinez, that's my email. And I have a thought, only to finish this, Christian thought that's in everything is religion now in Brazil. Now I will use this. It's not always through the perfect goodness of virtue that one obeys the law, but sometimes through the fear of punishment. So if you use the tax complaint, a taxpayer will seek. Usually think, oh, it can be a tax assessment of tax authority. I will have to pay penalties, but now I have other uncertainty to consider. Maybe someone will do a tax complaint about me. Maybe someone near me will give information to the tax authority. Okay, that's the point. Thanks a lot to listen to my presentation.
Okay, thank you, Professor Martinez. It's a big pleasure hear from you all this knowledge about this issue, especially because you work in RS and it's a tax researcher doing a lot of interesting research in tax. This is another interesting research in tax, talking about a topic with a few studies here in Brazil. I must say, I found just a few studies about this topic. And first of all, congratulations from this presentation. So I will share my presentation now. Okay, everybody, it's seeing my presentation?
Yes.
No,
yeah.
Yes. Okay. So my main objective here is to improve the paper, and of course, the main objective of presenting a paper in a conference is to publish this paper in the future. I really like this kind of session, like we have a deep discussion of the paper. So I will try to do my best to make this paper better to publish. So in an overview, the scope is discuss tax whistleblowing, and you describe the fundamental legal nature, international scenario, and legal elements of tax complaint, and aborting subjective, objective, and formal elements. So then you describe tax complaints process in Brazil, tax whistleblowing reward, then you conclude with main points of tax complaint and reflection and what Brazil could improve this program. There's no program, but okay. Well, overview. The topic is relevant and innovative and already has robust international literature. But little local literature justifies specifically by the lack of empirical evidence. You already said, and we know why, because we don't have data. So the study presented itself as a theoretical or interdisciplinary essay with the purpose of discussing the concept of tax denunciation and make some reflection on how Brazil could improve based on international experience. Okay, this is an overview. So I will assert the improvements, a general one, and then for each topic or each chapter, what improvement you can be done to improve the paper, okay? So I don't know, but it seems the text it's structured for a researching law. I don't know. If there was the intention, it was that intention, I do suggest him looking for law events also, not accounting events only, to make suggest improvement to the article, aiming for a publication in law journals. Why I'm saying that? Because the structure, it's a theoretical work. It's possible to observe. And I'm not a specialist in researching law, but I know there are much personal opinion in the discussion. So I'm just pointing that. But if the intention is a publication in accounting and administration area, you should make some improvement to achieve this point, okay? The language of writing does not strictly observed in scientific style in theoretical words in accounting and administration journal. It's predominantly authorial text. In the most paragraph without a citation or loaded with prescriptive elements. So I know both authors are working RES here in Brazil. So we have a large experience in auditing and how the things going on down in the RS. So it's very common to use your experience in writing the text, and this it's be clear when something when you read the paper, it's make very clear that it's a very large experience in the author when they made some points and show how things going on here in Brazil. So some improvements in introduction. I think it's lack the inclusion of data to demonstrate the gap of the research. Why should Brazil adopt international practices for tax whistleblowing? This answer is not clear in the introduction. How many tax whistleblowing have been made in the last few years? You already said in your presentation, but I didn't know that reading the text, you should mention there. There's no...
Because I don't know also. I'm not transparent this information. I tried to look this information. No, but okay, it's great suggestions, great recommendation.
No, so you have to mention in introduction doing a research in all government website, it's not possible to observe data. So you are giving a gap of why should Brazil adopt international practice of tax whistleblowing? How many were collected with this denunciation? There's no denunciation, so it's a data to make the gap, you know? In chapter 2, some improvement foundations and legal nature. It's like the inclusion of previous studies and citation. For example, some paragraphs say from administration perspective, based on what? So it's like the RESI saying from the administration perspective. So you should mention some citation or base it in some source. You say about the weakness of the state to solve social conflicts. So we should to citate some study or literature to say that this is the objective of the state to solve social conflicts, among others. So chapter 2, it's like a lot of inclusion of previous studies and citation. And chapter 3 about international comparative, it needs to make a critical analysis of the international experience it present based on previous research and data. Have this tax whistleblowing progress been successful? You mentioned the US experience, Canada experience, a program, the instruction on how the whistleblower can do a denounce, and they have a website, they have a dedicated website or not dedicated. The other country, they protected the whistleblower, but you didn't give more data to say, this is good, this is bad, why it's good, why it's bad, can be considered a good practice. What this program results in more tax collection or more tax administration efficiency or etc. You know, if political, you mentioned in the article and the paper, if you mentioned about political, social, and history things, aspect for the country can influence the whistleblowing program. So if political, social, historical, and cultural issues should be considered in tax whistleblowing programs, why could important programs have the same effects in Brazil? You say, you said that Anglo-Saxon countries give them our rewards. In my personal opinion, if you do something near to this in Brazil, everybody starts to say, a lot of people will get this part of money, this share of money, doing a false whistleblowing and etc. So why I'm saying that? Because we have a different culture. People doesn't believe in the government. The literature say that the political trust is too low in Brazil. If you observe the previous literature about political trust and tax or taxation with a sample of Brazilian companies or Brazilian contributor, we will say that we have a low political trust. So why a different, why import a program with a whistleblowing from another country makes right or good here in Brazil? Which of these elements justify the current model in Brazil? Would it be possible by giving protection to whistleblower, for example, to increase tax whistleblowing in Brazil? Or because of our characteristics as low political trust, not even like this protection would that be possible to increase the tax collection? I don't know. So this is some points you should improve in the analysis, critical analysis, to improve the main objective of the paper, the research. Some minor points I think you should include in the name of chapter 4 in Brazil. So legal elements of the tax complaint in Brazil, in title of chapter 4, include Brazilian tax administration in chapter 4.1 title, and merge chapter 4.2 and 4.3 because chapter 4.2 is too short. So I suggest you merge that. It's only 2 paragraphs. And chapter 4.3, it's lacks supporting laws, decrees, ordinance, and legal and procedure norm. So I didn't know that, but you already mentioned. There's no law, but reading your paper, it's not possible to observe that. So I was suggesting you include according to law number, but if there's no law, you should mention. Chapter 5 and 6, just few points, like the inclusion of previous studies and citations. Some paragraphs is confusion and unclear. I recommend approve reading serves, of course, further. For example, rewards, also known as rewards. I didn't understand that. Many terms with value judgments without justification. For example, most reasonable, or we believe. So you have to improve this. And in chapter 6, it should explore further how reward programs have been successful in other countries with more data. And mention, like, if you want to suggest a program in Brazil, and you are observing and analyzing the international program, you should state what the program structure for complaint and complainant, what technology are used, what the tax administration structure. So you can compare and say if it's possible to do the same thing here in Brazil. And observing in previous literature with empirical data to contribute to analysis, I observe the absence of the Zagaris study. I think it should help. And Naritomi study that mentioned the São Paulo invoice as an example of tax complaint. This should help in your analysis and discussion. I can send to you by email further. And chapter 7, it's your conclusion. After this suggested improvement, you should be revisit. So the main suggestion, I think you should divide the text in 2 parts. First part, it's the descriptive part, and what is a critical analysis. Then base it on the critical analysis carried out, show which practices Brazil could adopt, observing the characteristics of our country, social, culture, historical, and etc. And make the analysis more robust based on previous literature and empirical data. Include a chapter with methodology. Even if it is a theoretical work, a scientific research needs rigor and method. And another possibility is to conduct a survey with tax auditors to observe their perception of tax whistleblowing program to corroborate the critical analysis performing instruction equation modeling. I think if you observe the program outside, abroad, in the international programs, made a critical analysis with previous literature and data, and you do a survey with tax auditors about their perception, you can structure a suggestion why Brazil should adopt these elements or aspects or this structure, and why, and this will be helpful for us. Okay, so that's all my suggestions and in possible improvement. I hope to fill in some gaps or something that may help you to improve your paper. So sorry about my English. It's not a, it's a kind of macaronic English, but
very clear.
Okay.
Thanks a lot for your recommendations. I think that are very important. I really like many of your suggestions. I think that are very good ideas. Only to review some of your points that you said, if you allow me to do this, I can do this.
Yes, very quickly, because we have to open for all the audience.
Okay. All right. So it's, yeah, it's a law journal. It's a perspective. You are right. Maybe I should give more data to give them information. Even though I have this experience, we have a lot of literature about this that show that tax complaint is very avoid theoretical and empirical works that show that tax complaints can avoid tax evasion and can improve the tax audit efficiency. You are absolutely right. I try to use them when you discuss the international experience. I use them as the best practice. But you are right, sometimes even the best practice, they have problems. They have some issues. You are absolutely right. Even US, they complain that sometimes the money, the rewards, take a lot of time to go to the tax whistleblower. In England, UK, they complain, oh, how do you define the tax reward? It's not very clear. It's not a number that's very transparent. So yeah, there are some critics about this. In all the countries, you can see from the literature, they are trying to improve. But yes, I use this as some practice that are used abroad. And when you compare to Brazil, we don't have anything. So I said, look, we can learn from this practice. But you are right. If I can provide more data, it will be more convincing. I will have more arguments to justify my hypothesis, my ideas that I want to defend. Thanks a lot for the recommendations of paper. I really would like that you can send me your slides. I would appreciate a lot. But in sum, thanks a lot. But maybe if I adopt all your recommendations, I will consider to do a small book, not more paper. But yeah, you would be the first book in Brazil about tax complaint.
Yes.
I saw many books about this in Italy, Spain, even in Portugal, thesis, but in Brazil, nobody discusses about this. But
yes,
you gave an excellent idea of some survey with tax auditors. Also, very good, very good. I appreciate a lot.
Okay, thank you, Professor Martinez. So I will open for the audience for any questions, comments. Let me see here, the participants, all the audience.
Could it be in Portuguese?
No.
No?
So we try to speak in English.
I was wondering because there is an institution in Brazilian law, denúncia premiada. It's similar, and I was wondering why this institution doesn't develop it in Brazil, doesn't evolve in Brazil like other countries. There was a time that it was in evidence, and by some ways, by legislative and judiciary branches, this institution was lacking power. It was reduced by something that is not there is not power in this institution anymore. So I was wondering if something like that could be succeed with this institution which is being proposed.
Okay, it's a good question. I think that's not exactly the same when you compare the delação premiada into a reward tax whistleblowing. And delação premiada, the whistleblower benefit from don't be a criminal, don't be incriminated. But in the case of reward tax whistleblowing, the idea is that the whistleblower has not to be involved in the situation. He's near the situation. He's a family member, he's a sister, he's an employer, but he's not, you cannot receive a reward for a crime that you are doing. I'm trying to say that. If you are a manager in a company that's omitting crime assets income, you are not supposed, if you do the reward, you will be benefit from this information. So it has to be someone not direct associated with the fact that's analyzed. So it's not exactly the same, but the spirit of to reward is the same. You are right. It's try to reduce the costs and to make that people that will do a tax whistleblowing or will do a tax complaint more willing to do. We do a cost benefit analysis. We have this benefit, we will have the reward. What are the costs? They have to do a cost benefit analysis. So we have to do a situation that will bind, so in a way that all the whistleblowers will be interested in give the information to the tax administration. That's the point that the reward is trying to reduce this balance in favor of the tax administration. But it's not exactly the delação premiada, even though has the reward in this sense.
Okay.
I don't know if I explained, but
no, yeah, partially, because there are drivers, social drivers, which incentives, social incentives for delação premiada sometime, and after that, this institution was blowing up. Okay, and those drivers are the same, could be affect also this new institution being proposed.
I believe not. I believe that will not be the same. I don't see the sense that the weakness that you have in delação premiada. I don't see the same situation in reward tax whistleblowing. I think that's particularly different. You are only trying to that person that's not involved in the situation, in the crime, in the tax crime, to help the tax administration. It's like to have someone as a tax auditor that's not a tax auditor. So look, if you give them this information, this will be crucial. You will give them an element that will be crucial to solve the situation, to have evidence of this situation. I will reward you. I think that's extremely reasonable to do that. I don't understand why it's not so used in South America, other than cultural aspects that can very conservative cultural aspects. Because if you see Portugal, Spain, even Italy, they have programs of tax whistleblowing, even though they have protection, but they don't have reward. They still don't have reward at this moment. So, yeah, we have to analyze. We have to analyze it. It's a controversial topic. It's a controversial topic. No doubt about this.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Anyone else wants to do some comments or suggestion?
You can reduce the costs, Professor, if you allow the person to speak in Portuguese.
Ok. Alguém quer fazer um comentário rápido em português aí? Vamos ver.
Maybe not.
I don't think so. I think it's not the language issue, the language problem.
Okay.
So I think that we can finish the session. Thank you, Professor Martinez. It's been a big pleasure. It was a big pleasure. Clap here. They write clap in the in the chat. So thank you very much, and I will send the slides to your email. Okay.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
Good night for everyone. Good night for everyone. Bye bye.
Bye bye.